Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to our fourth in our series of live stream pop-up classes. We're very excited to have our HVAC instructor with us today, Mr. Trevor Geisz. Hi, Mr. Geisz.
How you doing?
Glad to be here. We're excited to learn a little bit from you and watch you work. So we appreciate you doing this. Before we get started, I just want to take 2 minutes of everybody's time to promote some of our programs. So if you'll all bear with me while I breeze through my technology. Now, look how well I did that, Mr. Sikowski. Yes, Mercer County Technical Schools, these are 2-year programs. They start when you're a junior. So if you're a sophomore, you need to apply now. If you're a junior, that's fine. Go ahead and apply because we're happy to have you come just for 1 year. These programs are great opportunities for students to earn college credit as well as high school credits. You get early exposure to a career. You're also going to learn a ton of stuff, and the classes are also a ton of fun as well. First-year students come from 8 to 10:30 in the morning. Your home school district buses you to us. Second-year students come from 11:45 to 2:30. And again, your homeschool buses you to and from us, and you're going to get back in time to participate in after-school activities. That's why they call it shared time. Reminder that these classes are no longer for kids who aren't going to go to college. It is career-based employment, and career technical education is definitely suitable to that. So you're making real money when you get out of high school. But if you're going to go to college, go for it. You still can. In fact, 78% of our graduates go on to college. There's a list of those programs. Please take a look. As you know, today we're going to be taking a look at the HVAC class. And learning a bit from Mr. Geisz, but lots of excellent classes: business technology, horticulture and turf care management. We met our auto tech fundamentals teacher last week. Baking and dining. Oh my God, cookies, pies, cakes. It's incredible. Most of these programs have a few openings left. A couple are full. www.mcts.edu and talk to your guidance counselor. If you're a high school student, talk immediately with your guidance counselor. I think a lot of you guys are scheduling classes now. This is the place to go to apply. I'll remind you again at the end of all this to check out all our different social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube channel, where you can watch this later on or share it with a friend. And last but not least, our 2 podcasts, and the MCTS Experience and the Principal's Office. And now, that's enough of my yakking. Thanks everybody for your patience. I'd like to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Mr. Trevor Geisz. Take it away, sir.
Hi, how's it going? So as Mike just introduced, I'm the HVAC teacher here at Mercer County Tech Schools Pink Center. Just in general, we do electrical, we do air conditioning, we do refrigeration. We get into commercial and industrial. The second year, we get the students get their OSHA card, their OSHA 10 card in their first year. And in their second year, they get their EPA certification. So we get them certified and we get them trained up. And they can just use this knowledge for themselves and go on to college, like Mike said, or they can use this knowledge and then go right into their career, and we help them get a job. So what I'm going to go over with you today is how to change out a thermostat, which is one thing that we go over with the students. We do a lot of electrical work. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. We'll see if we have time for some more stuff after that. So I'm going to bring you over here. Let's see. And okay, I'll put you standing up so you can face that thermostat right there. If you have trouble seeing, let me know. But this is going to be your standard thermostat in a house. Now, every house has, multiple different kinds of thermostats. This is a very basic one, a Honeywell. I believe this is a 4000 right here. And it just has a couple buttons at the bottom for selecting your fan, your system setting, cool or heat, and then your temperature setting up here. So a lot of times, many things that we do out there are just changing thermostats that fail. So this is definitely something that we teach the students here. Now, of course, anytime we're working around electricity, we want to make sure anytime we expose it that we're turning off our electric. So we highly we get the students to really pay attention to safety constantly. So safety is extremely important. So I'm just going to use the webcam here to show you. On a typical system, you're going to have an emergency switch down here at the bottom. You'll see this is your furnace down in the basement or up in the air conditioner, up in the attic, I should say. You got your air conditioning coil up top, the evaporator coil, and there'll be an emergency switch either mounted on the unit or up at the top of the basement steps, wherever. Typically has a red plate. We would always want to switch that off, and you'll notice that there's nothing in the screen now. Now, if there's batteries in this thermostat, which there isn't in this one, you'll see. But if there's batteries in the thermostat, then you'll still see the screen on, even though you got the power off. So, and you'll be able to find that behind it. So when we take this thermostat off the wall, this one in particular just pulls right off. Most thermostats just pull right off. And I do want to say, don't try this at home. I know that there's a disclaimer up there, but I do want to let you know, don't try this at home unless you're certified to do this kind of work or you've had proper training. But with that being said, this one just pulls right off the wall. We've got some wiring in here. This is our 24-volt power, but before I go touching it, even though I turned the switch off, I need to make sure that there's no power there still. So I'm going to grab my meter and my tools, bring them over here with me. So the first thing I like to check is we call it a tick meter, but this is a non-contact voltage tester, which you can just hover over there. And of course, if I turn the power back on, I'm going to get a beep that tells me there's power. If I turn the power back off, now I don't have any power there. But I always like to double check with my meter because safety is extremely important, that there is no power there. And I'm going to check between red and blue, which is your hot and your common. And I don't have any power. All right, but by and large, turning that safety switch off is going to be your best first step. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these wires. Now we have, Mike, do you want me to go into the specifics of this, on what the wires do?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have a yellow wire, which is, now I want to make it clear that all conductors do the same thing. They just carry electricity. So the color of the wires are actually just there as identifiers for us so that we know which wire goes where. But that doesn't always mean that whoever you followed, whoever was there right before you, did it right. So just because there's a yellow wire here doesn't mean when I replace a thermostat, I'm definitely going to just go ahead and put that yellow wire back. I always want to check and make sure it's wired correctly before I reassemble. But yellow is going to typically be your air conditioning wire, your condenser outside. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that and leave it there. Now I don't have any power there, so I'm nice and safe. Do you want me to get up closer, or are you able to see this?
So far, I think I can see it pretty well.
All right, let me just go ahead and give you a nice zoom up. So what we're looking at here is the yellow wire that I just took off. And then usually these terminals are going to be marked. So, well, always nowadays, but back in the day. So we have a Y there for yellow, a G for green. We've got an R and an RC. And in this case, they are jumped out with this little conductor jumper here. And that means we only have one transformer in our system. So we don't need to separate them. But if we had two different transformers, we'd need to separate them. And then we've got a common, a C for common, which allows us to power our thermostat without a battery. That's what makes this work without a battery. If we had no common wire, like in older homes, we would need to put batteries in because it wouldn't work without the batteries. Batteries in this, what's that?
Mr. Geisz, I just wanted to ask, so that means that common wire, that blue wire, that's running off the house power. That's the power from the home. So when you shut off that switch, that's what cut the power to the whole thing?
Okay, yes and no, and good question. Actually, the power for the thermostat comes from the furnace down here, which is, of course, powered by your house power. This is low voltage power. This is 24 volts. The furnace is powered by 120 volts, which it then has a transformer down there, which literally does what it says, transforms from 120 volts to 24 volts. And it's going to make the 24 volt power that we use to control that operation that's up here. That hot power, the higher, the 24 volt, travels along that red wire. But if I don't give it another pole to go back to, which is what this common is, if I don't give it another pole to go back to, this thing just operates as a switch. All it is a glorified switch that controls power from one place to another. It just passes power over to the condenser, over to the furnace, over to the fan, and that's all it does. But if I give it that leg of power to go back to on the opposite side, then it can use that power as well, in addition to switching. So every thermostat's a switch, but only some of them use the power to give you a display screen. And that's the idea there. This needs that to give you the display screen. Otherwise, you'd need the batteries to give you the display screen.
I completely understand. You are a good teacher, sir. Wow, that's fantastic.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So I hope so. So I have the common there. I got the power. So we have red, which is your hot leg, which carries power, and then your common, which goes back. And that's going to mean that this gets power without the batteries. I got my yellow wire for my condenser outside. I got my green wire. That does my blower inside the furnace. That looks like that down in there.
Okay.
And that's inside your furnace. But if you want your air conditioning to work, it shares that same blower. So they both use the same blower. It's just stacked on top of each other. And then, of course, you notice this white wire. I don't know if you noticed, but this white wire back up here, bent up in there, that's not being used right now because these furnaces aren't in operation right now. These ones in particular, the ones over there are. But these ones in particular, we don't use the heat. We're using these for cool. So we didn't even hook this up. This W will be for heat. This white wire will be for heat. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put this back down. I'm going to go ahead and take those wires out so I can show you. I'm going to go. And I'm just going to remove my green, my red, and my blue. And we never want to work on electricity live. And even though this is only 24 volts, which is low voltage, it's unlikely to hurt you too bad. It's still electricity. It's very important to be safe around it. And if we try to do this live, which I've seen people do, which is not safe, you don't want to do that. That's why I train the students not to do that. But if they ever did it live and they cross these two wires, the red and the common, then what'll happen is it can short the board out and cause, oh, hang on, we got a bell. That's the bell. So it can cause a much more expensive problem than just turning the switch off, right? So it can destroy that circuit board below, which usually it has a fuse to protect it, but sometimes it can still do some damage down there, and we don't want that. So we're going to be safe. So I go ahead and disconnect these, and I could use my screwdriver to unscrew these screws, but let's just go through this kind of quicker. I'm going to use my power drill and take these screws out that hold this plate, and then I can take that right off the wall. So all we had here were two screws that were put through. These are wood screws because we're putting it into wood. Most people have drywall there, right? Most people would have drywall where they put it on their wall, but these are wood screws for the wood. I took it off, and now what I would do if this was my new thermostat is I would go ahead and install it right back into place. If I need to, I would make another hole wherever I need to make the hole and make sure it's covering up the old holes because you don't want them like sticking out in the house because you'll usually see that. In this case, it's not really a big deal since we're in the shop.
Mr. Geisz, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second.
Sure.
Students, or parents, or community members who are out there watching this, if you have a question, you can type it into the chat now or save it up for the end. Start thinking of some good questions for Mr. Geisz at the end. Mr. Sikowski will read your question live on the air, and it'll be very exciting, and Mr. Geisz can answer it. But if it's something compelling that you need an answer to right away, feel free, okay? Please continue. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no problem at all. And honestly, I agree. So anytime you have a question, please, by all means, ask. So as you can see, these are the terminals up here. They have these little thermostat screws that you see, and we slide the wire into there and screw that down to hold it in place. So what I'm going to do is I always want to make sure that I got my wire, and I'm going to feed my wire through that opening first. So, and now it can just rest right there on the wires since we know there's no power there, there's no harm. And I'm going to go ahead and install these screws back in. So I'm going to just use the same holes just to make it go a little smoother. Nope. And then I'm gonna leave it a little loose so I have a little room to wiggle it. You don't want to screw the first one all the way in until you get it all nice and level there. Now, I actually just use my cell phone, which has a little bubble level on it. I can do that, level it, but you can also use a little speed level, like a little turbo level, just to get it nice and level so it looks nice. And then we're gonna secure them back in. Oh. Now on a real thermostat on like a drywall, I wouldn't use this drill because I wouldn't want that, at least at the end, because I wouldn't want that to strip out the drywall and then leave a big hole and it doesn't hold onto the wall. I bet a bunch of you people at home probably have a thermostat that kind of wiggles on the wall. That's what they did most likely. They over tightened it and then it stripped out the drywall and the thermostat now wiggles. It doesn't stay nice and secure on the wall. And they probably just didn't use a molly bolt as well to hold it in, an anchor, a wall anchor. So now all I got to do is reconnect my wires back up. And again, if this was a new installation or if I wasn't sure, I would go back and check at the furnace to make sure that these wires were actually used correctly, that the actual color of the wire is the same down in the furnace as it is up here. Because sometimes people do some stuff in the field that we don't know about. So I teach the students to make sure, double check, that everything's correct before they go ahead and put everything back together. Now, I've tested this thoroughly, so we know that they do work correctly, and we're going to go ahead and install our wires. I always like to start with my common and my hot to get it right out of the way, my red and my blue.
And remind me again, Mr. Geisz, what's the yellow for?
Yellow is for the condenser outside, which is part of our air conditioning system. And I can actually show you. In our shop, it's right here. It's not outside. So that's the condenser right there. And many of you probably have seen this sitting outside your house, unless you don't have central air. Then you guys have window units, all right? And then this is the inside component of the air conditioning system, which is our evaporator. If I hold it up here, you can actually see it's just a coil down there sitting on top of the furnace. So the air blows through that coil, and they are joined by these tubes, these copper tubes, which flow down and out to the condenser that it goes to. And they go back and forth. And you can see on this condenser, there's some tubes right there flowing in.
Okay. And you can, so then you had mentioned earlier that you got to check where that wire's going. Is that where it ultimately goes?
So this wire, even though it goes out to the condenser, it does first make a pit stop over here at the furnace at the board. This is your furnace control board. So it's going to first go over there to the control board. Then it's going to go also back out over to condenser, because this control board is the heart, the motherboard that tells everything where it's going. And this thermostat is what tells that control board, hey, we want heat or we want cool. All right. So that's how that works. So your thermostat is basically telling that master computer down there what to do. Okay. So that's how we can use it to control it. All right. So we're going to go ahead and install the last two, and we'll turn it on. I'll show you. We got our G, or our green, which is going to be for our fan down there. I know G doesn't go with fan. Oops. That's got to go. We got to make sure we put in the right terminal. Got to go into the Y. And I would normally also then be hooking up my white, which is my W, to the W terminal. And that would be for my heat. But we don't have that wired up right now. So we're just going to leave that back there. And normally we'd want to tape that up with electrical tape just to make sure that it doesn't do anything if we had a situation like that. Now, I can go ahead. I'm going to double check all my connections, make sure they're all nice and tight. Go ahead and put this back on, and it'll click into place. Now, remember, this will be a nice new cover. And when we set up a new thermostat, it'll come with an instruction manual. I'm not going to go through all that today. It has a whole instructions on how to set it up with what system you have. Make sure it's controlling it correctly. Make sure you got all the right wires in there that you need for the and the new thermostats are really intuitive, so they can check themselves as well, especially the higher end ones like Nest. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn it on. See if we got power. Oh, it is turning on. Okay, so now we have some power here where you can see it says 74. It's backwards on my screen. I don't know if it's straight for you, but my webcam kind of flips it for me. It says 74 for there. And then we've got the fan setting on or auto. Auto means it comes on with the unit. On means it just stays on all the time. Some people like that to circulate air, so the filter will pick up more stuff. And then you have the heat, cool, and off. So we're going to turn on to cool. Let's see if this thing turns on. Oh, you hear it?
I heard a click.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh, I can hear that. I can hear those wheels turning.
And there's your fan going. And I heard the refrigerant flowing through the lines. And let's go ahead and just take a moment. Let's see if our condenser is working as well. We'll go outside.
I'm getting colder, Mr. Geisz. It must be working.
And here it is. Look at it's on. There's the fan running. We got our compressor running. So everything's being told what to do. You can even see I have gauges hooked up still from before to this unit. And you can see the pressures have risen on those needles. The high side's at 275 pounds about. The low side there is about 115. We probably have R410A in this system. That's a higher pressure refrigerant. So that's the kind of stuff that we're going to learn about. And then finally, if it's all right with you, if we have enough time, I'd like to just show you something, because it's been virtual. It's been a virtual environment for us, and it's been more difficult to get the students in to see the stuff. What we've done is I put together a kit for them to take home so they can work on it at home, of course, with the permission of their parents or guardians, and signing off on it, and somebody be there with them. And we're doing it over live meet. But basically, do I have enough time to show this for a minute, Mike?
Mr. S, what do you think? Please do.
All right, so here is the kit assembled. This is fully assembled that we put together at home as a group. We were all live on a Google Meet. What it is it's a plug at the end. It's got a junction box for us to make wire connections. It's got a light switch, which simulates your light switch on the wall. And it's got a light bulb, which will turn on and off using that light switch as long as it's plugged in. So when we plug this in, it's essentially the same thing as the light switch on your wall, and it controls the light bulb in your ceiling. The only difference is that these wires in between would be longer, and they'd be hidden by your ceiling and your walls. They'd be run through the walls. But other than that, this is the same setup. So I'm teaching them, and they've been doing very well. I'm teaching them how to assemble this. We have several students who have assembled it on their own for a second time after they already did it the first time. So what I'm going to do is just show you at the end of it, with permission and supervision, and while I watch, they've been able to plug it in to an outlet. I start with a GFI outlet, which has a resettable circuit breaker, so that I know that they're not going to trip the breaker to the house, and then their parents would not be happy. Or guardians. So I plug it in, and then all I have to do is switch the switch on and off to turn my light bulb on and off. And that is a great feeling for students. I remember the first time I ever wired something up and got to see an actual event happen because I wired it up. And I'll tell you, a lot of the students have been responding excellently with that. They're starting to get reinvigorated back into the learning. And they'll be getting some more stuff to send home with them as well. So I know I'm over my time, so I'll stop.
Don't be silly. So these students have all this equipment at home, all those pieces of that project board.
Yes, yeah. I scheduled for a few weeks because the parents, and guardians, of course, had to schedule this around their time to come pick everything up. And I even drove some out to them if they couldn't make it, and had them, sign off on it, explained everything to them. They had the option of keeping the electrical cord at the end and not installing that if they didn't want their students to, their children to, have it electrified. But even then, they would still be able to assemble the kit, just not turn it on. So they were all able to work with their hands. They've all been in, and it's been a real great help. And we're going to send them home with another kit soon. So
outstanding. Great hands-on instruction lesson. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Mr. S, how are we doing for questions? Anybody got anything in the chat for me? Okay.
Oh, no problem.
Tell us a little bit about. Well, although I feel like I just learned a lot about the HVAC class and how you're providing that hands-on experience for the students, even though they're at home at this time. But could you just give us a general overview of like what are they going to finish up with? You mentioned the OSHA certification, and what's the other?
Sure. Sure. So year one, they're going to do a couple things. Number one, they're going to get their OSHA 10 certification, which is a safety certification. It's usually very costly for people to get. We provide that for them, and they go through the process of learning that the safety, the on-the-job safety, and the requirements for them, and then they get a certification at the end of that. That's wonderful. In addition to that, in the class, they're going to be learning the first year all the way up until at least residential air conditioning and heat. So that means in a person's home. So in like an average homeowner's house, that kind of residential heat and air conditioning. That's going to include electricity, like we just went over, which has various forms. Thermostat is just one of them. And this light switch and light bulb and outlets are another. And then, of course, electricity involved in these actual pieces of equipment. And then they're also going to learn the refrigeration cycle. How does refrigerant work? How is this cool in our house? And I got a cool tidbit for you. Has anybody? I shouldn't say has anybody because they're not responding to me. But that's just how I usually teach. But most people have probably put their hand over a running condenser outside to feel the air coming off, and it feels hot. And people are usually confused by that. Why does it feel hot? I thought this thing was supposed to cool, right? Not heat, right? So what actually is happening in air conditioning is it's taking the heat from inside your house, moving it into the refrigerant, using that refrigerant as like a transportation system outside, and then it rejects that heat out into the outside air. So you're taking the heat from your house, tossing it outside. That's the idea there. And that's all that is heat transfer. So we learn that the first year, and we really get pretty well versed on how air conditioning works, how the refrigeration cycle works, how this happens. And then, of course, electricity. And then we tie it all together with the furnace. Normally, it's a gas furnace, a natural gas or propane furnace. And that furnace also controls our air conditioning. As we said, there's a board down in the bottom that controls both the furnace and air conditioning. It also has a blower motor where that moves the air through your house in and out of your vents. And that is used for your furnace, which is your heat, and it's used for your air conditioning, which is your cool. So they learn all of that in their first year. In their second year, they get their EPA certification, which allows them to buy and handle refrigerants, which is an essential certification for our business. Takes a little bit of time, but it's universal. If they get the universal, they never have to worry about it again. As of right now, there's no retesting. Once they pass it, they get it forever, which is wonderful. And then after that, we go into, for those of them that are not working, which many choose to work, and we have a CIE program for that. Those of them that are not working will then stay with me and learn commercial refrigeration, industrial refrigeration. Back in the back there, we even have walk-in freezer, a walk-in cooler. We've got refrigerators. We've got reach-in stuff like you see in restaurants, and like the soda bottles come in when you go pick up the pizza. That kind of stuff. They work on that. Various different things, ice machines, etc. So they learn quite a bit here. Absolutely.
That's really, really cool, Mr. Geisz. This program sounds great and like a great opportunity for a career path, a great way to start out in a career path. You mentioned the CIE, which of course is a great way for students to earn money while they're still in high school, but still getting the high school credit and plenty of hands-on experience. I happen to know that when Mr. Nash gets our kids out on the CIE, a lot of them end up working. They go right into work. So that's really, really cool. I want to thank you very much for showing this to us. And once again, just a reminder for everybody listening and everybody out there, you can check us out on the web at www.mcts.edu. The application portal is right on there. A little drop down says apply now. Videos about all our different programs are under that same drop down under admissions. So check out the shared time video for information about all of our programs. And you'll see little clips of Mr. Geisz's class in there. So check it out and apply to HVAC or any of our great programs at mcts.edu. Mr. S, shall we wrap it up? Okay. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Mr. Geisz, awesome. We really appreciate it. Great lesson and great time getting to know you a little bit better today.
Thank you.